am the woman you stop for when the road is empty and someone looks hurt. And this is a story about how pretending to be injured can end a life. I learned early that drivers slow down when they see blood. So I kept a small blade taped inside my sleeve and cut my forehead just enough to drip without blinding myself. That night started like the others because I chose a rural stretch with no houses and parked my own car out of sight behind a slope. I waited until I saw headlights slow because hesitation always meant sympathy, and sympathy meant opportunity. When his car stopped, I staggered toward it and leaned on the hood so he wouldn't see my legs were steady. He asked if I needed help, and I told him my phone was broken and my ride had left me. He stepped out, which told me everything I needed to know about him. I asked for his phone, and when he unlocked it for me, I saw the name on the screen. The last name was rare, and I had seen it before in another phone years earlier on the same road. I didn't react because reacting ruins timing, but I memorized the confirmation on his lock screen. I moved around the car while pretending to dial, checking the doors and the condition of the tires. When I gave the phone back, I dropped it on purpose so he would bend down. I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled away while he shouted and ran after me. I drove hard until the road curved, then slowed and turned onto a dirt path I already knew. I wiped the steering wheel with my sleeve and switched cars, leaving his behind bushes. I drove home with the radio off because silence helps you remember details. The next morning, I went through the car carefully and found a folded paper in the glove box with a date circled from 5 years earlier. The date matched the night another man disappeared on that same stretch of road. I recognized the handwriting because I had held that paper once before in a different car. I knew then that the man I took the car from was not random. I tried to convince myself it was coincidence, but I had learned never to trust comfort. I checked the trunk and found a child's jacket sealed in plastic. I sat on the floor of my garage for a long time without moving. I told myself to sell the car quickly and forget everything. That's when I thought it was over. I had no idea what was about to happen next. The story isn't over. Subscribe the channel to continue. 2 days later, I drove the stolen car again because avoiding it made me reckless, and recklessness gets you caught. I noticed the fuel tank was nearly empty, which meant he had been driving for hours before stopping for me. At the station, a man approached and said he liked the model, and when he leaned close, I saw he was shaking. He told me his brother vanished years ago on this road and asked where I got the car. I told him I bought it cheap, and he stared at the license plate without blinking. When I left, he followed for 3 blocks before turning away. That night, I searched the car more thoroughly and found dried mud under the seats that matched a place near the river. I drove there after midnight because daylight makes guilt louder. Near the water, I saw disturbed ground and pieces of plastic buried shallowly. I dug with my hands until my nails split and uncovered clothing I recognized from the jacket. I understood then what my role had been all along. I wasn't stealing cars. I was selecting replacements. I went back to the garage and cleaned everything because denial feels like control. The next morning, I returned the car to the same stretch of road and left it unlocked. I waited nearby and watched as a man arrived and collapsed beside it. I drove away without being seen and never used that road again. Weeks later, I moved to another city and tried to start over with different scams. I avoided families, avoided names, avoided looking into cars too carefully. One night, I cut my forehead again and stepped into the road. But the driver didn't slow. He accelerated. I was hit hard enough to break bones, but not hard enough to die. As I lay there, I saw his face clearly, and it was the same man who had followed me from the gas station. He got out, looked down at me, and said nothing. He walked back to his car and left me there. One last question. If you were in her place at that moment, would you have done the same? Be honest. What does her choice deserve out of 10? Subscribe now. The best story is coming next.